question. Senator McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Gold, my question is simple, but it is urgent. As all Canadians know, Beijing has retaliated against Canada's new tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles by targeting our seafood exports, a move that directly threatens thousands of jobs in Nova Scotia and across Atlantic Canada. Our many fishing communities, which have absolutely nothing to do with the EV industry, are caught in this crossfire. Coupled with protectionist policies and tariffs from the U.S., the fishing industry now finds itself with restricted access to its two largest markets. The U.S. tariffs are at 10%, but the Beijing tariffs are at 25%. Why should Atlantic Canada be penalized because of bad business decisions made in Ottawa?
Senator Gold.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for your question and for underlining for those in this chamber and who are watching the impact that these tariffs are having on the fishing sector in your region, province and region, as it is in many other areas, the agricultural sector, canola and others, upon which Canadian businesses and families depend. This government has been very clear about how it is going to approach its relationships with China. It will always and at all times act in the best interests of Canadians to defend their national interest and to deal with and engage with China in a pragmatic, focused way based upon creating a different and sound basis for areas where we can work together when it is in the Canadian interest. And in this respect, the government is engaged with its counterparts to evaluate how best to proceed in what is has been and will remain a very complicated relationship with a country that is asserting itself in the world in ways to which we must be very, very careful and mindful and diligent as we respond.
Senator McDonald.
Senator Gold, these tariffs are retaliation by China towards us because of our position on tariffs. Did the government consider the consequences of Chinese retaliation before imposing a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs? We're hearing that these multi-million-dollar investments in electric vehicle battery plants, which were used to justify these tariffs, are already facing delays and uncertainty. The one in Quebec, we don't even know if it's going to occur. Stellantis is stopped all of its production or all of its progress. Was it worth risking key export sectors like seafood and agriculture to protect an EV strategy, which may not even materialize?
Senator Gold.
The whole structure of international trade and therefore by extension and by consequence international relationships is in turmoil as a result of actions that Canada, no Canadian government, no Canadian political party or leader ever desired. But it is upon us. This government is focused with laser attention on navigating through these difficult times in this rapidly changing world. And Canadians should have confidence that this government, which enjoys the support of millions and millions of Canadians and who is working carefully with premiers in the territories and provinces and with Indigenous leaders and business and union leaders to chart the best course forward for Canada. Time will tell, but the government is focused and determined to serve Canadians through this and chart a course through these very, very challenging times.
Senator Martin.
Senator Gold, your government is planning the largest debt issuance in Canadian history, surpassing even during the pandemic, at a time when foreign investors are fleeing our bond market and borrowing costs are already surging. Yields on 10-year bonds have jumped more than 50 basis points since April, yet the government refuses to table a budget until the fall, months after the fiscal year began. Investors, analysts, and ratings agencies are all sounding the alarm. Lack of transparency, fiscal uncertainty, and an over-reliance on foreign demand that is now vanishing. Canadians are staring down higher mortgage rates, weaker investment, and mounting national debt, all without a credible fiscal anchor in sight. Why is this government risking Canada's financial stability by issuing record debt into a shaky bond market with no plan and no budget, while foreign investors pull back and confidence collapses?
Good question.
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question and for underlining
Senator Gold.
of a proper, transparent, and responsible management of our economic affairs in this turbulent time. The government has been very clear that it will introduce a budget in the fall. To have introduced anything even in form resembling a budget now, with all of the uncertainty and changes, literally day by day, in terms of the tariff structures to which we are being subjected to the developments in the bond market caused largely by actions in the United States, and the tariff policy in particular, would be an irresponsible and meaningless exercise. The Prime Minister was elected with a mandate to guide Canada and help transform our economy in these difficult times. Canadians can expect that this will remain a priority and a focus, and can look forward in the fall to getting a proper and accurate picture through a budget when the information and the situation stabilizes.
Senator Martin.
Leader, the longer the government hides its budget, the worse this gets. Bond markets are reacting now, not in the fall. Foreign creditors are watching and withdrawing. Does the government seriously expect Canadians to believe it can borrow record amounts, delay accountability, and still protect our economic future? Or is this delay just a cover-up for spending plans it knows the markets and Canadians cannot afford?
In the fall,
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question. As I said, it would be irresponsible and misleading to provide at this juncture a projection. It would be an irresponsible and misleading exercise to do other than what the government is doing now, which is to work assiduously with premiers, leaders in business, industry, Indigenous leaders, to chart a course forward. As we all know from the meetings that have been held and will be held, this government is focused and will remain focused on economic matters in the best interest of Canadians.
Senator Coyle.
Senator Gold, as you know, growing Canada's economy, fighting climate change, and keeping up with the global trends in decarbonization are national imperatives. Canadians embrace the urgency to build more national projects and make industries more competitive. At the same time, they want to be reassured that our government is still committed to meeting its climate commitments. Canada's Net Zero Advisory Body says that decarbonization is a unique opportunity to increase economic prosperity and jobs, as well as human and environmental health. Last year, the government announced a greenhouse gas emissions reduction target for the year 2035 of 45 to 50% below 2005 levels. By 2023, Canada's emissions had only decreased by 8.5%. Senator Gold, is the government still committed to meeting the 2035 target and the climate targets as set out in the Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act passed in this chamber in 2021?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question, Senator. The government remains committed to its goals and is making investments that will drive emissions down, will drive new economic growth across Canada, and open new export markets with like-minded countries who share our values and want and need indeed what we have to offer. As the government works to build a stronger Canadian economy, it will not lose sight of the choices that these actions will have on future generations, on our environment, and those humans and species that depend upon a healthy environment. This government will always be mindful of the long-term sustainability of its plans for economic growth and for a healthy environment for generations to come.
Senator Coyle.
Thank you very much, Senator Gold. I do hope we will be able to make those actual commitments, the numbers that have been laid out. I was pleased to hear the speech from the throne reference the COP15 biodiversity commitment to protect 30% of the world's lands and waters by 2030, with a promise by the government to create new national parks, new national urban parks, and new marine protected areas. Senator Gold, would you be able to elaborate on the government's plan and timeline for these exciting new conservation initiatives?
Senator Gold.
For underlining this government's commitment to continue to protect larger areas of our natural, marvelous country, whether on land or in the marine environments. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to comment or provide information about the timetables for that work, but I have confidence that this work will be done seriously and with urgency.
Senator Kutcher.
Senator Gold, today along with Senators Dasko and Simons, I attended a remembrance ceremony for Ukrainian children killed since Russia's full-scale invasion. Over 630 innocent children have died and over 2,000 have been injured. That's 16 children killed or injured every single day. What is Canada specifically doing to stop Russia from killing these innocents? Why is Canada not helping close the skies to Russian missiles and drones that are directed towards civilian targets? Specifically, will Canada step up to lead the creation of Sky Shield?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question and for reminding us of the devastation of this illegal war initiated by Russia against the Ukraine. Canada stands resolute in its commitment to support Ukraine as it defends its independence in the face of the Russian brutal aggression. And the government's commitment to Ukraine will endure, as this government has made clear. My understanding, Senator, is that the Munich Security Conference, the G7 foreign ministers underscored their commitment to work together to help achieve a durable peace in a strong and prosperous Ukraine, and reaffirmed the need to work together to develop robust security guarantees to ensure the security of Ukraine and to prevent the war, to end the war, indeed, and prevent the war from returning.
Senator Kutcher.
Thank you very much, Senator Gold. I just can't help but notice that guarantees don't save lives. Over 700,000 Ukrainian children have been reportedly stolen by Russia. This, as we know in this chamber, is genocide. In February 2024, Canada announced that together with Ukraine, we would be leading an international coalition for the return of Ukrainian children stolen by Russia. I understand that since then only about 1,000 have been returned. What specific steps is Canada now going to do to improve on this dismal result?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question. With regard to the coalition, colleagues should know that since it was announced, 41 states, as well as the Council of Europe, have joined the coalition, a collective commitment to bring Ukrainian children home. My understanding is that the invitation to join remains open to any country wanting to help with this important mission. And the Montreal Pledge is a roadmap to find practical solutions for this important work. My understanding is that there are now over 50 or approximately 53 countries and multilateral organizations that have signed this pledge, and Canada hopes to welcome as many to continue to participate in this important work.
Senator Black.
Merci, Madame. le Président. Senator Gold, as you're aware, the Liberal government has made very clear their intentions to build more housing to solve Canada's housing crisis. However, along with the agricultural industry, I'm concerned that these commitments will be filled by building homes on prime agricultural land that is already becoming scarce across this country. Although it may seem convenient to build on these lands, using up more farmland is going to weaken our ability to remain a food sovereign nation and feed our country, let alone the world. We are rapidly losing prime farmland to urbanization and the development of housing and infrastructure. Once the farmland is gone, it's gone. Our land is valuable and we need to protect it. Senator Gold, could you please explain how the government intends to fulfill their promises for housing while also prioritizing the protection of these diminishing agricultural farmlands we need to feed our country?
Senator Gold.
Your question, it's an important one. As I've said on many occasions, this government has a serious and multi-pronged plan to do its part to get more homes built. Whether that's building homes, affordable homes in the role of a developer, cutting GST for first-time home buyers, cutting municipal development charges in half for multi-unit builds, an initiative building on the Housing Accelerator Fund, agreements with nearly 200 communities across this country. Having said all of that, Senator, as you know, the protection of agricultural lands is a critically important issue for the health and well-being of Canada and of our economy. But land use designation falls within provincial jurisdiction, with the exception, of course, of Crown land. This is an issue all levels of government are seized with, and the federal government is doing doing its part within its jurisdiction. Thank you for raising this question.
Senator Black.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Gold. I understand the need to build homes and infrastructure to support our growing population. However, such development should not affect the ability to produce food, fiber, and fuel. Will you ensure government takes into account and prioritizes the protection of prime agricultural land and the inherent health of our soil in all future development plans?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question, and indeed, if I may, also the important work that the committee that you chaired did on the importance of soil health for our environment and our economy. Again, please forgive the constitutional lawyer in me underlining that this is largely a matter of provincial jurisdiction. I certainly will bring these attentions to the attention of the minister so that the government is also keeps this in mind as it pursues its work in this area.
Senator Klein.
Senator Gold, I'm delighted that the bill C2 fulfills the government's election promise to amend the Canada Post Corporation Act, allowing police, with a warrant, to search items in the mail for fentanyl and other contraband, as with private couriers. This change has been a proposal of Senator Dalphonse since 2022 with Bill S256, supported last year by our legal committee. Our committee made an amendment to enable Indigenous nations to authorize Canada Post to conduct screenings of mail for illegal drugs coming into their territories. This request came from the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs and the Mushkegowuk Council, representing 70 First Nations. This change is not in C2. Will you please raise this with the government, the potential inclusion of the screening measure via an amendment?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question, for your advocacy, and for underlining the work of our colleague, Senator Dalphonse, and the legal committee when it studied Senator Dalphonse's bill in the previous Parliament. Yes, I will certainly raise this with the minister at my earliest opportunity, and there will be and sometime thereafter, when the bill does arrive in the Senate, we'll have an opportunity to address it as well.
Senator Klein.
Under Bill C-15, adopted in 2021, the UNDRIP Action Plan requires the government, in consultation with Indigenous peoples, take all measures needed to ensure that the federal laws comply with the Declaration. This includes the Canada Post Corporation Act. Self-determination, of course, includes reasonably preventing the flow of contraband into communities. Will you please raise this aspect of the potential amendment as well?
Senator Gold.
Well, thank you again, Senator, for your question. The government is indeed committed to the action plan to which you refer. It will continue its partnership with Indigenous peoples to ensure a smooth rollout of that, and I will add it to the issues that I'll raise with the minister.
Senator Husakos.
Merci, Madame Présidente. Ma question s'adresse.
Thank you. My question is for the government leader. With the study of C5, Chief Inspector said the following in committee. There's an increased presence of firearms among young people, and this bill will have repercussions in terms of the public perception of possession of firearms, and will even create a sense of impunity among youth. 2 years later in Laval, there's been an increase in teenagers using firearms and being recruited by armed gangs. Will you recognize that the soft on crime policies like C5 these policies have failed to protect Canadians? And will those provisions be repealed? Senator Gould, thank you for the question. One thing's for sure, the problem of violent crime using firearms is a legitimate and serious concern among the public and in this country in general. Nonetheless, the government is of the view that its approach, i.e., increasing the number of officers at our borders and also increasing significantly the number of RCMP officers, it's the government's view that this is a significant response to this serious issue. At the same time, the government announced during the election campaign, announced other steps to be taken to amend the criminal code to better protect Canadians.
Husakos.
Honorable Sénateur,
Honorable Senator, according to StatsCan in 2023, violent crime involving firearms was 22% higher than in 2018 and 50% higher than in 2013. Senator Gold, how can Canadians trust the Liberal government to fight armed violence when they reduced mandatory minimum sentences for crimes such as using a firearm in the commission of an offense or firing with criminal intent or armed robbery? Senator Gold, thank you for the question. Colleagues, for a long time now, there's been a crystal clear difference between the position of this government and the position of the official opposition in the other place. The government will continue to focus on concrete steps to be taken in the field to protect Canadians better against the arrival of firearms across the U.S. border. This is a serious issue that we're grappling with, and the government is assigning greater resources to that. We will continue to act pragmatically to protect our communities.
my question again is for the government leader in the Senate. The 2025-26 main estimates highlight a concerning trend in how the federal government spending is managing. Nearly half of all government expenditures now require annual parliamentary approval, up sharply from roughly one-third a decade ago. This growth in voted spending signals a heavy reliance on short-term programs rather than stable statutory frameworks. Canadians see the consequences: less predictability, more bureaucracy, and growing difficulty for provinces and stakeholders to plan with confidence. Leader, why is your government prioritizing temporary, often narrowly targeted initiatives over the kind of long-term fiscal stability and planning that Canadians deserve? Canadians got a new Liberal Prime Minister, but it seems like he's still embracing old Liberal habits.
Senator Gold.
You'll forgive me if I return the compliment by saying there's some rather old conservative talking points embedded in your question. But it's a serious question. That is to say, how does the government manage our affairs, and how does a Canadian government navigate ourselves? This government has been crystal clear about its focus on major projects of national importance to help build this economy into one of the strongest, if not the strongest economy in the G7. More importantly than where we rank in countries is the service and the advantages this will provide for Canadians. Now, the work is only now beginning. It's beginning with rapidity and with urgency, working in partnership with premiers and stakeholders, Indigenous leaders, and business and union leaders. This government is focused on long-range projects that will build better jobs, indeed better careers for generations of Canadians. And it is that that is what Canadians expect from this government. That's why they elected this government, and that's what this government will do.
Senator Housakos.
Senator Gold, I don't want to get into a match here of who's using talking points better than the other. The bottom line is the opposition is asking very legitimate questions about planning, stability, transparency when it comes to finances. And I think that we should not delegitimize that by calling them talking points. Right. So, government leader, a jump in vote spending was understandable during the pandemic. We even were cooperative. But one would expect the numbers to return to normal after these programs were discontinued. But instead, the trend has worsened. Why is the government governing by stopgap measures and reactive budgeting instead of providing the steady, responsible, transparent financial stewardship Canadians have a right to expect, and they've had once upon a time in the past?
Where's the budget?
Where's the plan? Senator Gold.
Thank you. I never have and never will, and did not in my response call into question the legitimacy of those questions. I think Hansard will show that I validated the importance of the question. It is simply that this government is focused on moving Canada forward through bold and important measures that will provide, if successful, a structural impetus towards a sustainable and stable economic future for all Canadians.
Senator Prosper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Leader of the Government in the Senate, Senator Gold. On July 8, 2024, then DFO Minister Diane Leboutillier announced that an external review would be undertaken in response to two young Mi'kmaq fishermen who said they were mistreated and left stranded with no shoes in a March 2024 incident involving DFO officers. The three Mi'kmaq members of the review panel were cleared through the OIC process. However, they have not been contracted. Senator Gold, when will the government fulfill its commitment to reconciliation and transparency by launching this external review?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question, Senator, and for your advocacy on this. It was and remains a very troubling incident, and the government is taking steps to address it. I do not have a specific timetable for the launch of the review, but I have been advised that the work is ongoing.
Senator Prosper.
Senator Gold, my last official conversations with DFO and Crown Indigenous Relations on this was that DFO would tender the third party to execute the review while Crown and Indigenous Relations would oversee the contract to avoid a potential conflict of interest. Can you tell us if that contract has been tendered and confirm who will be overseeing it? Thank you.
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question. I cannot, at this time, I'm not aware, frankly, of whether the tender has in fact been awarded, but I certainly will raise this issue with the minister in the days to come.
Alors, le temps alloué pour la période des questions est maintenant écoulé.
This brings question period to an end.